One. It's been a few weeks since I've offered a Lightroom tutorial, and today I would like to show you a little bit about the transformation or the transform panel. The first thing I'll do with this particular image is correct the white balance. I haven't done any editing on this yet. This is right out of the camera. And normally in my workflow, I would make sure that the white balance is correct first. So I'm going to do that by clicking on the eyedropper tool here at the top under where it says treatment, white balance, and take the eyedropper over, and I'm going to sample on the white foam of the water. I want to find something in the image that is neutral, white, gray, black. And I could use the covered bridge, but it looks like it might have a little tint of green or blue in it. So I'm going to go with the white water. Click on that, and Lightroom adjusts the white balance for me nicely. So the next thing I want to do is actually come down to detail and eliminate some of the noise in this image. I shot it at ISO 1000, and my camera can handle that. But if you look in the shadows, you can see there's a little bit of grain. I suppose we could make an argument and say it's part of the fog of the day, but it looks a little grainy to me. So I'm going to go ahead and use the noise reduction and pull that up to about 35, and that should help the grain in the image. I'd have to be much more careful about the noise if I were going to print this image, and so that's something to be aware of. The thing that bothers me most about this image is the lines are all not square. So this beautiful grist mill has a pretty vertical line right here, but the horizontal line, base is not level, roof is not level. And then this vertical line on the side of the covered bridge is not vertical either, and you can see everything is kind of slanted. I do, however, on import of my images, I automatically have lens corrections applied. So I already have the enable profile correction and the chromatic aberration checked. And Lightroom automatically applies those for me when I import. So with my 1635, I'm bound to have a little more distortion than what Lightroom will correct with the lens correction. So let's go ahead and work on that a little bit with the transform panel. In the transform panel, you've got these little hashtags here. It looks almost like a tic-tac-toe area. It's the guided tool, and we're going to use that, but I want to show you some of the other parts of the transform tool. Off means whatever part of the tool you have, or the panel that you have applied, you can turn it off if you're not happy with those results. So the first one I always like to try is auto. So I'll click on that, and Lightroom actually did a pretty good job. It's got the base of the grist mill level now, the roof looks good, the vertical lines are all pretty straight. So I would probably be pretty happy with that and not worry about using any of the other tools. However, that's not this tutorial. So I'm going to turn that off and put the image back to the way it was. I'll go over to guided, and that gives me these little guidelines that I pointed out to you earlier. We'll do that in just a minute. I'm going to return that to the little circle and take that off. I could also try clicking on level, because this really needs to be leveled out a bit. So we click on that, and Lightroom does a pretty good job of making it level. However, the vertical lines are a little off here. This is a little worse, and these are still not straight. So level won't quite do it, since I've got to correct the vertical lines as well. I'm going to turn that off. So let's try vertical. Vertical lines look pretty good now, as do the horizontal lines. So I would be pretty happy with that too. I think that looks pretty good. But let's turn that off and see what happens when we click on full. That again looks pretty good. Lightroom has cut off quite a bit of the image, but it is level, and the vertical lines are pretty straight. But let's turn that off, and let's do the guided tool. So I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to find some vertical lines in the image that need to be straightened. I'm going to click on a part of that line that I know I want to straighten, which in this case for the covered bridge is going to be this opening right here. I click and hold down with my mouse or whatever you happen to be using, and as I pull down, Lightroom creates a line for me to see where it thinks that vertical line should be. So I'm going to follow the line of the opening on the bridge until I get as far as I can. Normally I'd like a longer area to sample from, but once I get to the end, I lift my finger off the mouse and Lightroom has put a pin there. So I've got 2 pins. I still have the line, which tells Lightroom this should be vertical. I'm going to come over to the grist mill now, and I could choose a number of different areas. This line is pretty straight, as are these back here, but I think I'm going to go ahead and use this. Again, I'll click and hold, pull down, keep that line straight, and lift. Now Lightroom has straightened this vertical and this vertical. What's off is the horizontal line. So I will take a sampling at the vertical line, click and hold, pull my line out. I want that line horizontal. And when I release, oops, yeah, that's right. Lightroom creates the vertical, keeps the vertical and creates a horizontal line. Now the roof line is also straightened. What I like about this is rather than the full, it didn't cut off my little waterfall over here from the grist mill, and it didn't cut off too much of the rest of the image either. So I'm going to keep that, and in order to do that, I just take my little guided tool and return it to that little circle. And that's that. That will be all I'll do in the transform panel. Now, to finish this image off, I would like to add just the tiniest bit of contrast, the tiniest bit of clarity. And then looking up at my histogram, my highlights are okay, but I've got a little bit of clipping in the blacks. So I'm going to pull that up just a bit, quite a bit actually. I'm up to 18, 17, it disappeared. It's back now at 14. I'm going to allow it to have just the tiniest bit of clipping, I think, at 15, 14. Now, my favorite panel, the HSL color black and white panel. So I'm going to start with the oranges because we've got leaves here that are turning. And I'm going to pull the saturation down just a little bit. I'm also going to make it a little more red and then lift it just a little bit to brighten. Maybe just a little more red. Okay. Then I'm going to go to the yellows. I'm going to make them a little more orange by sliding it to the left. And I'm going to brighten or lighten with the luminance, pulling it up. About 15 or so. Now that looks pretty bright. So the other thing I'm going to do is work on the greens because these greens are almost neon to me. I don't really like that look. So I go to the greens. I'm going to actually pull the green down into more of a yellow shade, but I'm also going to desaturate it. And then I'm going to darken it. I'm going to pull the luminance out of it and darken those greens a lot. Okay? That's probably all I will do with those, with the color panel. Now I want to add a vignette because I really want the focus to be on the center of the image, the bridge and the grist mill. So I'm going to pull the vignetting down quite a bit and pull the midpoint into the center quite a bit. That really helps the eye focus on the center of the image. I want the viewer to see the fog. I want the viewer to see that this is a covered bridge, grist mill. It's kind of hidden in behind these leaves and trees and bushes. So that is basically what I would do with this image. I might tweak the color just a little bit more and play with that. But essentially, that's what I would do. And if you have any questions about the transform tool, please ask. Sometimes you have to just play around with the guided lines and see what will work. I always try the other transformation buttons first just to see if that will correct it. But if you have any questions, please let me know. And thank you for watching.